Good evening. We have a couple of guests with us here today. Dan and Jimmy from No Other Pod from Kansas City. We welcome you guys here to Resurge the Spike ATL, the FILA Sports Podcast. How you guys doing? How's the vibe? Around Kansas City. For this 2022 season.
Doing well. First off, thanks for having us on here, you guys. That
Yeah.
intro video there got me all hyped to talk soccer, and we're only a couple weeks away from meaningful soccer games. So we're excited to be on here and talk about it.
Yeah, it's shortened off season. It felt like because of starting a little earlier this year to try to get the full season in before the World Cup in the winter, which is a little odd. But I told you guys before, full transparency, we've fought with Atlanta fans on Twitter before, so we're feeling a little behind enemy lines right now. But we're
Who
excited
hasn't?
to be here. It's on brand, right?
Tommy, what do you think about the season? When it comes to like having Kansas as the first team that we have to face. I mean, they were one of the top seeded teams last year, so I mean, well,
Yeah, it's weird when you start with a team that isn't in your conference that you don't see very often. Like usually you see like a lot of teams like the East play the East and the West play the West. But it's good to see some different teams play. I think that Atlanta specifically with the weird COVID schedules that we've had over the past couple of years, we've really been limited to seeing anyone out west. And I mean, I don't know if you guys feel this way too, but it feels like if you're one of the top clubs or even not the top like team as far as points, because Atlanta United has really struggled over the past couple of seasons, but a team that gets a lot of ratings, they constantly stick us in matches against Seattle, the LA teams. So you don't get to go see some of these other teams. Like we play Colorado week 2. It's great to see other teams. I'm sick of seeing Seattle, usually because they beat us every time. But I would like to see, I'm sick of seeing the Galaxy or LAFC. LAFC, I think we've played the past few years. So it's good to be able to see Atlanta play some different teams around the league for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, Atlanta, look, as much as we joke around with Atlanta fans or whatnot, there's some deserved arrogance there because you guys came in, splashed some cash, signed some really great players and Joseph Martinez and Miguel Almiron and have continued to bring in quality players, got an MLS Cup very quick. So, I mean, it's great atmosphere. I don't think either Dan or I have been down to Mercedes-Benz yet, but we've talked about it. We want to. So this is for me from Sporting Kansas City's perspective. This is an interesting first game to have because even though Atlanta might not have been quite up to where you're used to being last year, it's a quality side that's going to be a good early season test.
It's a good test, but also a little storyline in there. I believe Sporting was the first ones to hand Atlanta their first loss at home, so
Yep.
that's a little exciting for us. Not
I
for you
didn't know
guys.
that one. I didn't know that one. Seriously.
Yeah. So maybe a little chip on the shoulder for the players
Yeah.
there, and
Yeah.
Sporting going in there feeling
No,
good.
but yeah, definitely. I mean, and like we were speaking beforehand. I mean, Sporting Kansas City. I mean, is one of the top. I mean, teams for the in the Western Conference. I mean, I don't even think that the LA teams have had the same consistency that Kansas has. Um,
What did all
I
the
mean,
LA teams, all the California teams, and the Texas teams all miss the playoffs? Was
Yep,
that
no
basically
California, no
everybody?
Texas.
If you weren't in Texas or you weren't in California, you were cool. You were in the playoffs. So
That's right.
pretty easy to remember there.
Yeah,
yeah.
and Sporting, they've got a good history under Peter Vermees. It's his 14th year as Sporting KC coach, longest tenured, certainly with one club in the league. And outside of God, what was it? Was it 2019, Dan? That was like the first time in 8 or 9 years where we missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and so as you mentioned, Sporting has a consistent history of being competitive. They've won MLS Cup in 2013, have won a few U.S. Open Cups since then, have gotten close, gotten back to the Western Conference Finals a couple of times, but it's always a competitive team.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, that's what I want is for Atlanta, and I think they keep bringing these coaches on that it's like a 2-year plan. All right, so your first year is trying to get the culture together, right? Get the game plan. And like that's year one. And then year two is when you go for it. And then year two, the coach is gone. At least that's been their plan. It seems on a pretty consistent basis. With Tata, he left. Frank DeBoer, I think they were hoping for him to be along a little bit longer than he was. Thank God he wasn't. And then, they had, a couple coaches. I mean, they had the temporary coach that came in, Stephen Glass, who just got fired from Aberdeen. And then Heinze doesn't give the players water, so he's out.
It's a problem.
We've got a temporary coach that comes in again, and then we've got Pineda. And I think that's the goal. And I think that's been always my goal. Is I'm sick of these, these 2-year plans. Like you want consistency. So just like what you're saying with, having the longest tenured coach, I think that's what they're hoping for Pineda, because that's what really makes Seattle a good team. I think is that they've just had so much consistency and success. So. We're hoping that Pineda becomes that for Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the advantage Sporting KC has is that consistent system, and Dan and I were obviously entrenched into Sporting KC fan culture, and it's funny because sometimes after a while, I think some SKC fans, if we get in a poor run of form, almost think that consistency is a weakness, because Peter Vermees gets almost a reputation of he's too stubborn, he doesn't adjust, because we know when SKC runs out there, it's going to be a 4-3-3 system. It's going to be possession-based. It's going to be a high press. The fullbacks are going to push up in the attack. And he's got a reputation for not subbing very often. And sometimes if they get in a poor run of form, fans get a little antsy. But Dan, I think we both think that, while some people look at it as a negative, that consistency is what delivers that constant competitiveness, and it's Peter's biggest advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you want someone there who's going to lay down, not only lay down roots, but be there to really build something. And it all starts from the academy and bringing those players up. And Peter should be the benchmark. Peter Vermees should be what clubs look at to have a coach. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that there's ever been a time when you guys have struggled? I mean, I know you've been making the playoffs most years, but he's not going to get you over the hump. So have there been rumors of him possibly, departing at any point?
There's what we call the Fire Vermees crowd, which I think they're absolutely asinine. Like that's, it's just, how are you going to, finish second in the West and then call for his head, call for his job. So
yeah,
it's, you hear those calls for his job, but it's dumb. It's unwarranted.
The closest I think I ever thought he was to actually leaving wasn't like, oh, he was going to get fired. It was when the U.S. men's national team was looking for a new coach this last cycle before they hired Greg Berhalter. Peter Vermees he played for the U.S. men's national team. He played defender. He's never been shy about his desire to potentially one day coach the U.S. men's national team. And so when they were looking through, for a new coach, and in that cycle, I think he was interested. But then I remember he listened and he talked with them. But there was a press conference I remember him having after, a sporting game where they asked him about it, and he just ripped into U.S. soccer, and he's like, "There's no vision, there's no plan, there's no anything." So I still think one day, maybe if Greg Berhalter doesn't work out, who knows? Peter could leave for that. But outside of that, I mean, yeah, there's like Dan said, there's the Fire Vermees crowd that's like, he can't get us over the hump. We haven't won MLS Cup since 2013. And I think it's hard for some people to realize that, Sporting KC as an original MLS club is still evolving and growing. Alan Pulido was our first signing where we spent more than, 7 figures. He was like a $10-11 million signing is the rumor. I mean, you guys are out there spending $15-16 million on players like it's nothing. So
and they're terrible. And a lot of these guys are terrible.
Yeah, they're not worth it. They haven't really produced to what they really are supposed to.
Yeah. But I mean, hey, and even Pulido, I mean, that's the danger. Like, so Arthur Blank's got more money than God. If a $15 million player doesn't work out, okay, well, let's sell PT back and we'll go get the next one. For the Sporting owners, they got a lot of money, but I think they have to learn to trust Vermees and the technical staff that when they say, hey, we want to spend $10 million on this player, he's going to be worth it.
It's got to fit the club, right? Like it just can't be a flashy player, because you could bring in a player like that, but it might not work in this system. It's team first, right?
Yeah. And Pulido, in full transparency, if you were going to give him a grade, it's maybe incomplete, because he's only played like 60% of the games that he's been around for, because he keeps getting injured. And now, as you probably know, he's out for the entire 2022 season already because he's had knee surgery from a lingering knee injury he got with the Mexican national team last year that's continued to bother him. So there's still some holes potentially in the Sporting KC roster that we'll have to learn about as we go through the year.
Isn't
Do you
there
get
a
any
new
salary
guy that
relief
came in?
for him? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. There was a somebody that came in as a loan, right, from a European league, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Isn't he
Yeah,
supposed to be one of the guys filling in for Polito?
Glad you brought that up. It's a Montenegrin striker, Nikola Vujnovic. So he's on a
Yeah.
season-long loan from a Serbian club, and they, with an opportunity to buy at the end of the season. But Peter's kind of sticking his drive and his trust behind Kyrie Shelton. He might be our starting striker for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and for those of you who I don't expect, if you're not a Sporting KC fan, you know a ton about who Kyrie Shelton is. He played soccer at Oregon State University, came up through the MLS Super Draft, was drafted by New York City FC, was typically a winger with them, was okay, came to Sporting KC, played striker and winger, actually played striker consistently during the 2018 season when we set our club record for most goals scored, even though he had like 2 of them. Then he went over to Germany for a little bit, came back, and so he's a big bot. What you can expect, or what Atlanta's back line can expect with Kyrie Shelton. He's super physical.
Physicality.
He's a big dude. He's like 6'3", and he's fast as hell. He takes up space. He's not afraid to use his body to push people off the ball. He's strong. He creates space and takes up the central defenders. So Johnny Russell, our right winger, and Daniel Shalvey, our left winger, can cut into the space that Kyrie pulls open, and that's his most dangerous attribute for offense.
Okay. Well, it should be interesting to see him up against Miles Robinson then.
It's going to be a battle.
And actually, our other starting center back will not be. He's suspended.
So we have Campbell.
Franco. Yeah. So Campbell is coming up, and he's big. I mean, he's bigger than Miles. And I thought he was fantastic last season. I keep forgetting that Franco's suspended, but those are 2 big guys. So that should be a good matchup then for sure.
Yeah, it'll be good.
No doubt.
So when it comes to like the expectations for this season for the Sporting Kansas City fans and for the club, I mean, obviously there's high hopes, obviously being a top seeded club, same as for Atlanta, but do you guys see it as if the organization has a complete roster to basically compete for those or the depth basically to compete for the now we have the US Open Cup coming back up, and MLS is a long season. I mean, it is a pretty long season. So what do you guys feel is going to turn out for you guys?
I think the depth has come along dramatically just in the last couple of weeks. A lot of new faces. Starting 11 looks different, but the kicker and what's going to need to happen if Sporting wants to be competitive is Johnny Russell and Daniel Shalvey on the wings. They need to come strong like right away. Well, don't wait till mid-July to pick it up. I mean, they need to pick up where they left off last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, y'all probably know Shalvey. He was in that MVP conversation. He was our Golden Boot winner last year. He had a huge bounce back year. He played like 120 minutes in 2020, and then 2021 just flew back to form. Johnny Russell started off a little slow, and then he had like 9 straight games where he scored. And he gets into these streaks where he gets really, really, really in form. So it'll be interesting. We know we're missing Polito, like we said. We also know we're missing one of our other designated players, Gadi Quinta. He's our starting, attacking midfielder. He's not going to be able to play for the first month or so of the season. So Dan's right. Shalvey and Johnny Russell have to step up and really sort of lead the offensive attack. And Graham Zusi's still going to be back there playing it right back. I mean, we've joked before, he's like the Tom Brady of Sporting KC. Like, he just never seems to lose form despite his age. But Peter did say last year, even though Graham started just about every game at right back, the plan wasn't for him to do that. And now we've traded our other right back, really, Jalen Lindsay, to Charlotte FC. all we have is a young homegrown who's never played an MLS minute behind Graham Zusi. So if something happens to Zusi at right back, we're in trouble.
Okay.
It
I
always
have an
feels
important
like
question.
it happens. Something similar always happens, with MLS teams where, like you said, you don't have like the depth in a certain position, and then you're just stuck with a youngster, from the academy, and it just, or even when the turns in going to international tournaments or U.S. Open Cup. Something happens, you don't have obviously your starting lineup, and then you have all these kids from the academy. But that's why I was asking you, if you feel like the depth has come along, for Sporting Kansas City, even with the academies, with all the homegrown players.
Yeah, it's better than last year, I think. Last year, that was the big complaint, was we didn't sub hardly ever, but it's because you looked to the bench and you really just had a lot of young homegrown academy kids who had never been tested. And I don't think Peter Vermees trusted them. It was better to have a tired Johnny Russell or a tired Alan Polito out there than it was to have a fresh 19-year-old who's never played an MLS minute. So, now we got some actual depth pieces who have some experience, and I'm excited to see them.
So for us, our biggest weakness is wing. We don't have much depth there. I think our back line is fantastic. Our backs are good. Our midfield's pretty loaded with talent, but the wings, we're actually moving some of our midfielders over to wing. Aruju, one of our DPs that we picked up late last season, he's either going to start on the left or right, probably the right, I would assume. But on the left, we're basically probably going to be moving one of our midfielders over there, which is Moreno or Thiago Amada, which we're not even sure if he's going to be able to play for the opening game. He just got back into town and he's got to do visa, to get his visa in time to be able to play. So we're not really sure if he doesn't play. We could have a very thin team that week one, because Moreno, who was our DP, who we bought down, is hurt, hasn't played all preseason. He's been struggling with injuries. We also have another winger, Morini, who got hurt apparently. So we've got a lot of injuries for sure, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next week and a half to see if any of them are going to be available. The only thing that we hope for on this podcast that we talk about every time is they buy out Jurgen Damm. We've got like a week and 2 days. They got to get rid of this guy. I think he's got like our 4th highest salary in the league, in our team right now, and he doesn't play a damn minute. There you go.
Yeah.
My dad joke coming in.
Yeah,
see, somebody laughed. Okay, thank God. All right. But yeah, it's our depth has definitely been struggling. So I could see this team definitely being able to come in after we just sold George Bello and hopefully getting rid of Jurgen Damm, that we could be able to bring in some depth here for the future, because we definitely need one injury up front is definitely going to hurt us. So, but we got Joseph Martinez back last year and he did pretty well. But now I think with Thiago Amada coming in, I think they're really just trying to get the ball to him, because that was the hardest part for Joseph. He had to create a lot of things for himself. And he said that he was basically on one leg for most of the season last year. So, an off season, granted it's a short one. I think it's going to help him. We didn't even know last season that, basically he had another surgery in like late November, early December. And then he played, he played week one. I mean, he was playing in the regular season. So, hopefully, a healthy Joseph can fix this team immediately, make a bad team, look really good. And that's what he did the year after we won MLS Cup. That team was terrible. Frank DeBoer did not know how to coach a team, and we didn't know how to play. But Joseph all of a sudden went on, and how many games did he score, Ariel? Like 15 straight games or something like that.
Between 15 or 17, I believe. But yeah, it's up there.
So, I mean, the play goes through Joseph. We didn't have many goal scorers last year. I mean, Barco helped out a little bit and Moreno helped out. But other than that, we really didn't have a lot of other players actually scoring. And that's just been the struggle. So we hopefully Almada is able to play. I'd like to be able to see him get some time, especially at home. But be interesting to see what happens. The fan base is very divided on him. If you know the history, we talked about it all last week. So my interest is to see how the fans are going to react to him. It's going to definitely be interesting.
Well, this is where it's kind of fun, right? The hype is there because it's the first match of the season. So we're all just excited through the roof and everything, but it's not an interconference matchup. It's cross conference. So the pressure's kind of off a little bit. They can kind of have a little more fun. And we all know that we don't even know who a team is until late May?
Yeah.
I mean, until they really find their footing and their form. And it's like, I don't know, these first couple months of games are just like, whatever, let's have a good time. Everyone don't get hurt,
Yeah. Anything can happen. I mean, I could see Sporting going down and having a dominant victory. I could see Sporting going down and getting shut out. Like all options are on the table.
Yeah.
Not the least of which is because some of the injuries. But if Almada plays, that's probably my biggest fear as a Sporting fan is, when our midfield's healthy, I like what we have. But with no Gadi Kinda, we don't really know who's going to be our number 10. Roger Espinoza, if he gets time, he's great, and maybe he'll be fresh because it's the first game of the year. But he's a little older. I don't know, if he'll be able to keep up with someone like Almada. And then there's just some other unknowns. It is interesting you say that wings are your weakness, because I would probably say that. I trust Graham Zusi on the right, but left, we don't know who's going to start between Ben Sweat, who we got from Austin, or a new young Belgian named Logan Ndenbe. So if you had to point to a weakness in our starting 11, it's potentially the fullbacks. So it feels like it's kind of
an unknown.
It's an unknown. Yeah. So it's almost like it's a good matchup because our biggest unknown is sort of matched up with your potential biggest weakness. So I'll be curious to see how these two teams face off against each other.
Yeah, I mean, we even have somebody on here like comment that says both Sporting Kansas City wingers are phenomenal. Kyle over here in the comments. I mean,
yeah.
So
I mean, Johnny Russell, Daniel Shadowy are probably. I'm biased, but like that's got to be a top 3 winger combination in the league, I would think.
Oh, sure.
I have a very important question for you guys. Does Patrick Mahomes come to the games, and is his wife and brother as obnoxious at soccer games and the Chiefs games?
He comes to games sometimes.
He does. I've seen him
because he's part owner of the team,
right?
Yeah, he's an owner, so I've seen him because I sit up in the press box. Dan sits down with the people. So the box that the ownership group sits in is just near the press box. So he's brought Travis Kelce, he's brought Tyreek Hill to games. I literally ran into Travis Kelce coming out of the bathroom one time.
Nice.
He's a very large human. I run into somebody and I'll look up and I'm like, oh, it's Travis Kelce. So it's fun. I've never seen Jackson Mahomes there. Brittany Matthews comes. I do have to stick up for Brittany Matthews a little bit. I know people don't like her, but hey, if I was engaged to or married to somebody as good as Patrick Mahomes, I'd probably get a little excited every time we won a big playoff game too. So, but no, it's so fun. I mean, we talked about this when Patrick actually bought into ownership for Sporting KC. That we wondered if it might actually help recruiting internationally for Sporting KC having somebody as well known as Patrick Mahomes associated with the club, because Peter Vermees always said the hardest part about recruiting for a club like Kansas City is that we're located in Kansas City. We're not LA. We're not New York. We're not Miami. We're not, Seattle or Atlanta, places that Chicago, places people know about. So he's like, once we can get somebody to Kansas City and they can see our facilities, it's game over. Our facilities are tops in the league, but you have to convince them that, you want to come to this place in the middle of the country where in the winter it's -4 degrees and in the summer it's 137 and you can get every range of seasons. So it's a tough.
And the Super Bowl MVP is owner of our club. So there you go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, there was already talk of Messi going to Inter Miami. I mean, that was what the talk 2 years ago when they were saying he was going to sign that special contract. I forget with who it was.
With Barcelona, and it was going to be 2 years there and 2 years. Yeah, I mean, look, you can even Josie Altidore just was announced after we all knew it was happening that he's joining the New England Revolution. Well, ESPN's reporting that Sporting KC actually thought that they were going to lock up Josie Altidore because we needed another striker. I don't think he would have been a good fit, but that's a different story. The reason he didn't end up coming to Kansas City is because his family wanted to go to Boston. They didn't want to come to Kansas City. So it's just an illustration of sometimes it's hard to get people, because I'm not from Kansas City originally. I'm from Los Angeles. I never thought I wanted to come to Kansas City. I never had any interest in visiting Kansas City. Then I came here and I was like, oh, Kansas City's got some cool stuff going on. So you just got to get people here to show it to them. But that's the hard part when it comes to recruiting.
For sure.
Well, at least it's not like us, man. You're actually there, man. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. He's in where you told me in Ohio.
I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm flying in for the game. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I mean, I'm also going for the season opener. I mean, I also go to like mostly a lot of the games. I'm like 4 hours away, so I make it to a good bit of the games. But
yeah,
it was the closest team. But now they have Charlotte, and everybody's asking like, "What are you going to jump ships now?" I'm like, "Nah, man. I'm sticking to."
You have too much gear in your background. You can't
exactly.
You're financially invested.
Too much time, too much money spent already. Like that, nah, man, it's not worth it.
Charlotte's not going to be good either.
No, I went to me and a buddy actually went to go see them. Their first game Saturday in the Carolina Cup
against the Battery.
Yeah, they wore masks, man. They wore masks, and they also tied it against the Columbus Crew 0-0. So, I mean, that defines it.
Yeah, Cincinnati's got to be excited. They might not finish last. I mean, that's Cincinnati's pumped probably. So that's exciting for them.
I've never heard a coach openly say, "Yeah, we're screwed" 2 weeks before their first game. So,
well, it's exciting to watch. It's always exciting to just watch train wrecks. So, it's nice to see new train wrecks. So maybe they'll be fun. I mean, really can't top Inter Miami's first year. I know Cincinnati's had their issues, but I mean, Inter Miami with playing with 13 DPs. I mean, it's just so ridiculous of what these rules are. One question I have for you guys, just because I asked this to everybody that follows other MLS teams, with the Leagues Cup coming, Leagues Cup, that's what's going to be called still, right? What do you think that the league is going to do as far as depth wise and roster position? Are they going to allow more players? Do you think they're going to allow more DPs? What's your thoughts on what they're going to do? Maybe what your hopes are.
That's tough, man. I mean, I think this year with the new U22 rule, where like if you have all 3 designated player positions filled, then you can sign this like U22 initiative player that can be up to like a TAM contract. Or I don't know. MLS roster rules are so crazy. It's hard to keep up, and there are new ones every year. But I think that's sort of like their attempt at being able to bring in another high value player. Just it has to be a young person, because we don't want the LA Galaxy to go sign their 87th old player from Europe like they just did with Douglas Costa.
Right.
But I think that's an interesting attempt at them trying to allow some more high value players coming in. I don't know that they'll ever get rid of the designated player rule or add more designated players. And the only reason I say that is because, I mean, that'll just that much more benefit teams like Atlanta or Seattle or New York City, who can bring in these high value players, and then a club like Cincinnati or Kansas City or Charlotte, who, we might be able to sign Alan Polito once, but we're not going to be able to go out and get 5 of them. I think they like the parity. So what I hope is that they make it easier to take the money that you get from sales of academy kids and make it easier to reinvest in your roster. Because right now you can use them for like designated players, but other than that, it's really hard to just use it for like solid mid-tier players, because there are certain rules. It's like only 800,000 of it can be used. So I just hope that they get better about encouraging MLS teams to develop players, sell them to overseas teams so you can get good value for it, kind of like exactly what Atlanta did with Almiron. And then it helps with recruiting, because then young, good players know, I can go to Atlanta, because if I go to Atlanta and I ball out, then I can go to the Premier League. Or if I go to Sporting KC and I ball out like Gianluca Buzio, then I can go to Serie A. And I think that's the most important next step for MLS, is to just keep developing and then sell those young guys.
Speaking on the Leagues Cup in general, though, I want them to make me care a little bit about this.
Yeah.
I want it to be a legitimate competition. Like, what are you going to do for me? How are you going to make me feel? Make me feel something.
Yeah. It's like, we joke about this with the Open Cup. Like, we don't care about the Open Cup as much until we win it, and then we really care about the Open Cup. Right. Suddenly it's like, we won a championship.
Right. So, if we win Leagues Cup, then I think it's the most important thing in the world. So.
Right. Yeah, Atlanta's done that too. What was it? The Campeones Cup? Yeah. It's like nobody really cares. Cup, and then you win it, and you're like, Campeones. We won it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, you have like you were saying, I mean, just now you have all these teams that are like the rich teams that are, able to go out and spend. And it does make sense, obviously to keep it a parity. And it was actually interesting. I was looking at a video, like I think it was yesterday or so, that how there was like this reporter from Liga MX that was basically shaming the league for how, basically MLS is, selling back to Mexico the players that have failed in MLS. And, you have all these young talents going to Europe to, not obviously, top teams. I mean, yeah, some, but not all of them. But I mean, you look at it and it's like, all right, MLS is taking that step forward, and now you will want to see it, even more. Like say in the CONCACAF Champions League, where MLS teams ends up winning it, or even the Leagues Cup, like we're speaking of. But definitely, I mean, I don't know if that's ever gonna change. Also, where they're just gonna increase the spending, limit, or but maybe, the amount of DPs, maybe one more, I don't know, but that's the way that I see it. I mean, it's just that, to create that competitiveness, because if you look at it, I mean, Liga MX has always, in every single tournament when it comes to international tournaments, has always have the edge on MLS every single time.
For sure.
I don't know if you guys see any team, this year making, a run or doing, something special basically in the CONCACAF Champions League.
I'd say that's anyone's game, because look at the Liga MX teams that did not qualify this time around. I mean, it's, you got no Club America, right? You got no, drawing blanks. I don't know as many teams as I thought I did.
I mean, Monterrey, they're not in there. Tigres, not in there. Club America, yeah. I mean, if there's an MLS club that I think is best suited for it, it sounds cliche, but I mean, it's the Seattle Sounders. Yeah. I mean, they're the cream of the West right now. Nicolas Ladero, a healthy Jordan Morris. They just signed Albert Rusnak. Christian Roldan's really solid. I mean, they have a ton of quality players. So, look, Pumas is always a good I'm looking at right now. Pumas is always a quality side. So, maybe there's somebody that could challenge them. Cruz Azul, they can be decent too, but Seattle, they're an option. And hey, New England, I mean, they were literally the best team in the history of MLS regular season last year. If Carlos Gil can continue to play as he did, and Gustavo Bu can continue to be a solid striker, hey, maybe New England has an opportunity too.
Don't rule out New York City either, man. I'm excited for them to, maybe they bring a little heat. I don't know.
They're up 2-0 right now. So
are they?
Yeah. So, I mean, anyone can really do it, but I think in a long wide tournament with one, you're adding games. So I don't even think they've even discussed right now. We talked to one of our local radio guys, and he doesn't even know the answer. Like, are these guys getting paid more money? Right? Like, I'm sure. I mean, with how much issues MLS has had with all their CBAs, right? I mean, it's gotten real bad. I mean, they renegotiated again because of COVID. It's already gotten a little dirty between the teams. So I don't think they're taking games away from the MLS season, from my understanding. It's just they're stopping it for a month. So if I'm a player, I mean, look at the NFL. They added one game, and look at how much hell, that chaos that started, right? Guys weren't even not figuring out that they weren't getting paid extra money. I don't think they were. Maybe I couldn't even follow. I just saw the complaining on Twitter. So now you're adding a whole month of a tournament. And you're telling me these guys, who most of them are underpaid, let's be honest, they're going to be happy playing an entire extra month? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like that you're going to need to add a little bit depth, or be able to call up some more players from the USL if needed, or MLS 2.
Yeah, MLS Next, whatever it's called now. Yeah. I don't even know. They keep changing it. Sporting's done that before. I mean, I've gone to an early stage, at least in the old format of CCL, when there was still like the group stage. I remember we're playing Saprissa, Costa Rican team, and we basically fielded a USL lineup out there, because it was like, you know what, we're not going for it this year. And then a couple of years ago, when we were in it, and we beat Toluca, and it was great, and then we got smacked by Monterrey in the next round, like 5-0 on aggregate or something like that. And
more than that.
Was it more than that? It
You
was a
tried
lot.
double.
It
It
might
was
have been
like
7-0.
10-2.
It was maybe we lost one leg 5-0
It was
or
bad.
something. I don't
We
remember.
don't want to talk about it.
It was terrible. But it sort of set the tone for the rest of the year, and that was the year we missed the playoffs. We put so much into it so early. Some players got hurt. Some players got tired. Then you get around to that U.S. Open Cup in the summer. Like you said, it's Kansas City. It's hot. We get in a slump. Suddenly we missed the playoffs for the first time in 9 years. So it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I feel like this is the first year, really. I mean, since early on that Atlanta hasn't been in it. I mean, we're like the 3-time U.S. Open Cup champs by just it not happening for 2 years. So I mean, that's been fun. We've been the 3-year champ. I mean, they let us in to the second year just because they had, they didn't have another rule for it, and then finally they just said, "Screw you guys! You guys can't play this year." But honestly, it's probably for the best. These guys have, they've been in it almost every year, and you get so distracted with it, and you put so much energy that you just start off the season real crappy.
Yeah. So, guys, when it comes to the, basically the Kansas City, like we've talked about it earlier, they're one of the top teams when it comes to the academies. We saw Gianluca Busio, going to Serie A. Where's the next, prospect, that you guys see coming out of the academy, or, a guy that it's like, all right, he's able to take it, to that next step in Europe as well?
It's a good question.
Or even, not just an academy player, but, just a player, in Kansas, that you can say, all right, this guy's got the ability.
So they came through the academy. They're current Sporting KC players, but there's two guys I say to keep an eye on. One of them I know is Dan's sort of like dark horse for the year, could be a real key contributor. His name's Cam Duke. He's a midfielder. He can also play a little bit of right back. He might be sort of our default backup right back if Zusi goes down. But Cam Duke really started to come on last year in the midfield. He might even start at attacking midfielder against Atlanta if Gotti can't go. But this dude is fast as hell, and he is creative. He's got good ball skills, and he is somebody who showed some real flashes last year. So, Dan, Cam Duke's probably the number one guy I would say to keep an eye on in terms of homegrown.
Well, that's what, last year I was just yelling about Daniel Shallowy. This year, I mean, it's Cam Duke, just turned 21 years old. I mean, he's the guy, and he's just so fast.
Yeah,
and that's you like to see that.
Yeah, and the other one is Felipe Hernandez. He is most well known at this point for being suspended partway through last year because he got into some gambling trouble. He disappeared partway through the season for quote unquote personal reasons, and we didn't really know why. And then it kind of came out, he got suspended for gambling, and the reason he went away for personal reasons is he came to MLS and Sporting KC and said, "I actually fear for my safety because of some of the gambling issues he got into."
He was about to disappear for good.
Yeah, so he did apparently bet on a couple of MLS games, although they investigated and determined none of them were Sporting KC games, so there was no like match fixing there. But still, it's a big no-no. Don't bet on games in the league that you're playing, especially when sports gambling is not legal in either Kansas or Missouri. So he got suspended, had to go through a whole bunch of stuff. But before he got suspended, he started to look like the next Roger Espinoza. Like he was the heir apparent to that sort of like box-to-box midfielder. He went through his gambling counseling. He's continuing to do that. He's been reinstated. He is somebody who, if he can get back to his form before his suspension last year, is another homegrown that could be a really solid player for a long time.
You guys have a lot of respect in Kansas City for Roger Espinoza, don't you? I've noticed that in the games and everything. I mean, they have a lot of respect for the guy in there.
Gotta
the
love
dude,
him.
He puts it all out there. I mean, if you want a guy that's going to go to battle for you and with you, like he's the first guy to get in someone's face if there's an issue. He's always fighting for every ball. It's just it's admirable as hell,
Every team, I like to think about it, like every team has that player that opposing fan bases hate. So I like to figure out like, okay, who's the guy on our team everybody hates, and it's Roger Espinoza. But that's why we love him so much. I mean, there's a reason that he's got the most red cards in the history of MLS. But he's a bruiser out there who's gonna fight and defend his teammates. He's literally punched other players on the field. But he's getting a little older, but he's such a presence in the locker room in terms of leadership. He's, many of you probably know, but he's from Honduras. He's a native Spanish speaker. And the biggest thing for him is when we get Spanish speaking players who come into Sporting KC who maybe English isn't great yet for them or they haven't quite learned it. Every single one of them are always like, Roger took me under my wing. Roger was my roommate, and Roger helped me understand what it's like to be a Sporting KC player. He helped me understand the culture of the club, of the city, and of the country. So he's invaluable. And one day he's probably going to be a Sporting KC coach.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Atlanta did something similar. Pineda brought in Ozzy Alonso, and they played together. And, Pineda coached them as well. Yeah. So I think Atlanta has missed that leader. They had such leadership early on with Lorenowitz, Parkhurst, Garza. Like they had 3 guys that just had a lot of experience in the league, and they got rid of all of them. I mean, all 3 retired. I know we moved Garza to Cincinnati, and then he retired. But I mean, they really haven't had that veteran presence in a while, in my opinion. And I think that's what Alonso's going to do. And especially if you bring in a guy with like Amada, who seems like he can be immature, at least from what you read. From reports. So I think that he's definitely a guy that can keep some of the young guys, centered and focused. And if not, Joseph will yell at him and scream at him on the field like he usually does. But I think Alonso's definitely, I think the first thing we heard about him was he was yelling at the players for wearing hats while they were eating dinner. So he was like forcing them all to take their hats off. Like that's what my grandma does. Right, my grandma does that. She pulled my hat off while I was eating. So I was like, all right, this guy's the grandma of the team. Awesome.
Just flipping them off. To flip the hats.
Speaking of players, though, that other teams, fan bases probably hate, Ozzy Alonso's that guy.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, that's why I hope he is. I mean, he's getting up there, but my understanding is Seattle had a younger player that they were ready to play, but Alonso outplayed him. So if he has another season or 2 in him, but I think that's his pathway. I'm sure Pineda, if Pineda sticks, hopefully, that Alonso maybe just moves over to the coaching staff, and he starts learning from there. So I mean, I think that's kind of the same type of goal.
Well, I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to hit, regarding both teams, or even when it comes to the U.S. men's national team or something. I mean, that's always fun to talk about when it comes to the qualifiers.
That depends on what happened most recently.
Yeah.
I guess the only thing I'd say is, look, I'm excited to watch SKC play down in Atlanta. As much as we joke and talk about how Atlanta's a fun team to hate on. Like they're only fun to hate on because they've had success so far. And I think the league is better when big popular clubs are good. One day I hope to get down to Mercedes-Benz Stadium and experience that atmosphere. Haven't been able to do it. Won't be able to do it next Friday, but maybe next time we play down there. I'm excited. Can't believe that regular season is already about back. It seems like it was just yesterday where we were heartbroken in our playoff loss to RSL, but here we are.
Just a random question for you guys. Are you guys Premier League fans?
Unfortunately, I'm an Everton fan.
Okay. Like, I don't know. I've been watching a lot of Premier League, and I just get bored. Like, I try to watch it, and it's so top heavy that it's the average game. Like, I can't just put a game on and be like, all right, I'm going to enjoy this. Because most of the times it's either 2 really terrible teams, or it's a big team beating up on a little team. You very rarely get those top 4 matchups. And with MLS, I've been trying to tell my buddy who I've converted from a Premier League fan to an MLS fan. It's like, it's chaos. Every game, it could just be chaos, especially in the playoffs. I mean, I like the 2-leg series that they had. But these playoff games, you have one bad game, you're out, and it's just so much fun. I know the talent, isn't as much there as the Premier League, but I like that they make mistakes. I like that teams counter from those mistakes. I think that I think that at least from when Atlanta's joined MLS, because I didn't watch it prior to that, it's improved every single year as far as talent wise. And now you're seeing other teams buying players. I mean, Columbus is a great one. I mean, look, they went out and made all these record transfers. They win MLS Cup. So I don't know. I'm just excited for the league to get started. I think that it's growing every year, and with this Leagues Cup, I mean, I just don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want MLS to be embarrassed. Like, what if MLS loses like every, the first round of every matchup? Like, it could happen because and then all of a sudden MLS is going to go to the CBA and try to change things up so they're not embarrassed. I could see that happening. It's very MLS-y to me.
The league will keep getting better, and I think there's obviously the arguments about pro rel and all that stuff, but one of the things that I think is driving the league forward is these new owners are coming in with these new teams, and a lot of them do have a ton of money that they can spend on expensive players, and that is causing teams like Sporting KC, who historically didn't spend as much, to spend a little more. So I'm excited to see where it keeps, and it's quite literally growing every year with a new team. I mean, by the time we're done, it's gonna have like 40 teams. But I think the EPL is fun, and they're just different in their own ways, because you have the relegation battle, so that's something you don't get in MLS. But then in MLS, you could be a mid-table team and still fight for a playoff spot, which you can't get in the EPL. So they have their pros and cons.
For sure. Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Yeah, and to all the people that were watching, or that are going to be watching this, don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, same as these guys. No Other Pod. I know they're on Facebook. I tagged them on their Twitter as well. Is there any other social media guys you guys handle?
No Other Pod on Instagram. He's at Dan Kuzer. I'm at JCMax03. You can follow us, and if you're an Atlanta fan, we might fight you at some point, but that's the way it works. So you've been warned.
All in good fun.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, it was fun having you guys, and I don't know. Well, yeah, it's the only time we play Kansas this year, right? If I'm not
MLS Cup, though. If you forgot about MLS Cup.
Yeah.
We'll be back. We'll be back.
Call
at
it
the end
now. There it is.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you guys, and hope you have a good night.
Yeah, thank you, fellas.
Too.
This was fun.
Yeah, man.
Take care.
Hey, guys.
All right.